Hi everyone, I'm Una and welcome back to the Monday Moan. This week is a bit of a follow-on from last week's Monday Moan, which was all about how food is in fact not medicine, contrary to popular belief. And this week I want to talk about the anti-vaccine movement. And why do I think that follows on? I think it kind of goes hand in hand with that same message of, medicine being in some way dangerous and food being a preferable option to medication. And I think that really just kind of is a natural lead on to or from the anti-vaccine movement. So let's kind of just bring it back a little bit, because the anti-vaccine movement has not really been around that long, and I guess, vaccines haven't been around super long either. But for me, the start of the really strong anti-vax stuff is kind of due to none other than former Dr. Andrew Wakefield. So basically, at the time, Dr. Wakefield and other research colleagues of his were looking at the MMR vaccine. If you're not familiar with the the MMR vaccine basically is the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine. So it's a 3-in-1 is what it's called. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more after story time. So Dr. Wakefield and his colleagues were looking at the MMR vaccine and they were like, does it have any negative impacts on health, basically? Now, when I say they were doing a study as well, I mean, they had like 12 kids who had got the vaccine, right? So it's more case studies rather than a research trial or a clinical trial per se, right? Let's just also mention that. And basically, Dr. Wakefield himself was biased against vaccines because he falsified results. So he basically made up numbers that did not exist, and said that there was a link between having autism and having received the vaccine. So him and his colleagues wrote a paper on their fake results and published it. It actually got published in a scientific journal. And one of his colleagues basically came forward soon after and said, hey, actually, that's not true, Saz. And the paper got retracted. You cannot find it on the internet anymore. It is gone because it's complete horseshit. And basically it led to a court case because, a doctor claiming that vaccines cause disease is like making up numbers. Not just that he's saying it causes disease, but he literally manufactured that link from nowhere. There was no other indication anywhere at the time that these vaccines caused anything other than, they prevented measles, mumps and rubella. So he really completely manufactured this whole anti-vaccine thing because he created a lie. And I find this the really most difficult part about it, because it frustrates me that now the scientific community, the medical community, has to defend and try and prove why the vaccine doesn't cause autism, even though there was never any evidence to indicate otherwise, right? So in the court case anyway, he was found guilty of making up results, and basically lying and manufacturing this whole thing. He was struck off and banned from practicing medicine, hence why I called him the former Dr. Wakefield. People who still refer to him as a doctor are probably also quacks, because, if anyone in their profession made up a lie that of this magnitude, that had this much knock-on impact onto people's health, particularly children's health, just FYI, we would not still call them, doctor. Just no. And how did he cause this movement? Well, I guess, he started doing, and it still does, he does these appearances and he does these interviews and stuff where he's says that he didn't lie and it's all truth and all vaccines are just a big pharma con to, get money, which is just I'm so done with that big pharma thing. I can't even. Anyway, The reason I'm so passionate about this particular issue, particularly the MMR vaccine, is because I actually did a project on it when I was at university. And it was back in like 2015, 2016 time. And I had a public health module and we were talking about, good public health and bad public health and stuff like that. And I kind of got interested in the whole MMR thing because I hadn't realised until then that there was such a movement against the MMR vaccine. And that's when I started reading up about Wakefield, formerly doctor, and his kind of shitstorm of the anti-vax movement. And it's funny because around the time that I started looking into it, there was actually a huge outbreak of measles happening. And it all started, well, it didn't all start in Florida, but basically it started really with someone who went to Disneyland or Disney World, whatever it is, in Florida, who had the measles but had no symptoms or was carrying the measles without symptoms or was asymptomatic. And basically they gave the measles while they were having a lovely time, I'm sure, in Disney in Florida. And basically all these cases started to pop up, and with every incidence it became more clear that they all had come across this person basically in Florida at some point. So this one person ended up causing hundreds of cases that actually spanned across the world. So I don't know where the person who had the measles, the case zero as they call it, was from, but basically it spread after people went to Disney on holiday, left and went back around the world. So, it was in America, it was in Canada, it was in Europe, I think it even got to Australia, just from one person carrying that. And that is just like crazy, right? Like one person had the measles and it spread around the world again. Because we were actually at a point about 10 years ago where we were like, we're going to eradicate the measles by, I think it was 2016 was the goal. We are now like increasing in measles incidence rather than continuing to decrease it. So kind of, we were at a point where every year there was like a handful of cases. Now we're back at a point where it's kind of going back to hundreds. And some years since then in the UK, there's been thousands. I think in 2017, there was 4,000 suspected cases of measles. Now, not all of those turned out to be measles, but that's how many people presented with measles-like symptoms, if you like. The whole statistics thing is a bit of a nightmare. Anywho, the reason that I'm so upset with this whole Wakefield thing is because this is literally what started it. Like, there's mountains of evidence since the Wakefield case to disprove what was never proven, which is really so stupid. So he said measles causes autism based on nothing, and the scientific community has responded and said, well, look, I've done this study, I've done this study, I've done this study, and there's literally hundreds of research papers been published about it since, none of which have been retracted, all saying that there is no link. And, the statistics back it up, that there is basically the incidence of autism among children who have received the vaccine and the incidence of autism among children who have not received the vaccine is the same, basically. And actually, I think it's super insulting that people are like, oh, I'm not going to give my child this vaccine that could save their life, because people can, have, and will continue to die of measles. It's not like just the common cold. It's a serious illness in a lot of people. People are like, no, I'm not going to get my child vaccinated in case they get autism. I'd rather them run the risk of getting the measles and dying, is like such an insult to anyone who lives with autism, or any parents of children who have been diagnosed with autism, because you can live a fulfilled life with autism. And anyway, that's besides the point. But let's talk about some other issues with the whole anti-vax movement, because there's quite the few. So like I said, it's the fear. It's the fear around medicine, it's the fear around vaccine, it's the fear around medical professionals who are actually trained in what they do, and claims that there are shills, and claims that they've been paid off by big pharma, and claims that it's all a hoax and it's all a con, because it's not. I don't know where people get these fucking notions from that everything's a con and it's a big conspiracy. It literally could not be. That's too, like, ain't nobody got time for that. Just, like, no. And like I said, the other one is we have to remember that people do die from measles and will continue to do so until we eradicate that disease. We were basically at a point where we had herd immunity a few years ago, and that's why we thought we were going to eradicate it. So herd immunity is this theory with certain vaccines where if enough of the herd, in this case the herd is us humans, if enough of us in our population get the vaccine, we protect the people who cannot get the vaccine, because there are people who can't be vaccinated due to, you know, having a suppressed immune system or undergoing different medical treatments, say if they're cancer patients, say if they have an autoimmune condition where they have a suppressed immune system, whatever it may be, or if they're not old enough to get the vaccine, so infants. So really, by not getting vaccinated, you're actually putting the most vulnerable people in our society most at risk of getting these conditions, the measles, mumps and rubella, and those most vulnerable people are the people who are most likely to actually have serious complications and die if they get those diseases. So please think about that for a second, because for herd immunity against measles, we need over 90% and actually really 95% of the population to get vaccinated. And once that happens, just measles is gone. And the anti-vax movement is basically pushing against that. It's pushing against protecting people from disease, which just baffles me completely. And we know that the vaccine works. Like I said, like we've proven that there's no link with autism, right? And I guess people's then their next argument is, but it doesn't do anything. Well, we know it does. There's so many graphs from when the vaccine first came in the UK. It's really well documented. The NHS have great statistics going back years. But it came in the 80s, and literally the year after there was a huge drop off. So say the graph is like this, it's like a steadily high rate increasing all the time, and then boom, the vaccines came in, gone. And it actually decreased further every time there was a public health campaign to encourage people to get vaccinated, which just proves the power of public health as well, I guess. So I can't explain enough how stupid it is to say that there is a link between vaccines and autism, when one has never been found and there's no evidence to indicate that. And the only person who used to have credit to speak up about it was found to be a liar. And also is now in the pocket of wellness. Like, he's creeping around the people in the wellness industry now, like Gwyneth Paltrow and that other model, Elle Macpherson. Like, he's just trying to make money for himself. And he's the real con man, not fucking Big Pharma, you know. And yeah, Big Pharma make money, but in a way, I mean, they kind of deserve to make big money if they're making big discoveries, if they're keeping people alive. And, you know, like, you can still be against paying for medication and paying for vaccines, which is fine. Yeah, universal healthcare all the way. But still, I don't think people really realize how much time and money and resources it takes to carry out all this research on medication, to ensure that it's safe, to ensure that quality is maintained, to ensure that the dose is correct, you know, to get people educated. There's so much that goes into it. To think that it's all a hoax and it's all just to make money is a lie. It costs a lot of money to do as well. And that's it. That is it. So look, you want to have a reasonable argument with me about it? I'm all ears, but only reasonable. And, you know, something else actually, while we're here, let's have a little chat as well about people have an issue with the MMR as well, because it's, like I said, it's a 3-in-1, I mentioned that a while ago. So like I say, it's the measles, mumps and rubella all at once. And people have this issue that if they get their child vaccinated with the 3 together, with the MMR, that's potentially more dangerous for their health, and that they wouldn't have this risk of autism if they just got 3 single vaccines, right? So that's a lie, okay, just so we're clear. Getting the 3-in-1 is safe, because, I've had it, I'm still alive. Lots of people have had it now at this stage. It's like, again, it's been through trials. We know it's effective for all three. And the reason that we do that is because first, we know that children's immune system, by the age they get it, is capable of dealing with the vaccine. We know that they don't get it when they're like newborns. They don't get it with their first injections. They get it when they're preschool age. And the other reason is getting a child vaccinated. I don't know if you've ever brought a child to get vaccinated, but it's traumatizing. Probably more so for the parent or adult that brings them, but it's not fun times. And so the main thinking around giving 3 in 1 is that it saves doctor's appointments, it saves the trauma for the child and the parent, and it's just easier if you've got an infant to bring them in one time, have to deal with the upset one time, and it creates more time for doctor's appointments for other children who are sick. So that's that argument. Anyway, I would be really interested to know what you guys think. Have you heard any nonsense about vaccines you want to tell me about? Hit me up in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.